Hi, my name is Steven Statzer. I'm a junior here at King University in Bristol, Tennessee, and today I want to talk to you about my final project for Appalachian music, also known as APAL 3130, about the traditional three-finger style of banjo picking, also known today as Scruggs style. The history of it all started back well before the 1840s and honestly before the Civil War, um, back with the African slave trade, bringing both the Africans themselves and the culture across from their continent against their will in most cases, um, and brought them here. And with them, they did bring some instances of their culture that were left. And one of those items was the precursor of the banjo that we know today. Now, as they progressed westward, much as the people in the Appalachians that live today did, they brought their culture and music with them, and that melded into the wonderful sound that we know today as Appalachian music and is often referred to as country and bluegrass, which we are the birthplace of. Um, so as this instrument began to pervade all across Appalachian society, it really played a backing role compared to most instruments. Typically, the fiddle would have taken the lead in most old time string bands, leading up to the dominance of the three finger picking style. Before the three finger style, most banjo players would typically play using what's called claw hammer, which in which your hand would make sort of a claw here. You would strum down, and the backside of your uh, middle finger would strum across the strings, and then your thumb could pick a single tone, therefore being able to make the melody um, and the lead in some instances. Now, while this was an extremely skillful way of playing, um, it was much slower than what was possible with the three finger style, which began as early in 1840, was the earliest source that I could find in Western Carolina. And it slowly gained popularity in that small little section of Appalachia that's tucked just against the Tennessee border. But it really just stayed there for quite some time. The first successful person that was able to play it was a man by the name of Scruffy Jenkins. Um, and he was really the earliest influence for Earl Scruggs that we had over time. And they went back and actually told a story that after after Earl had heard Scruffy play for the first few times, he was very interested in it. And one day, after having an argument with one of his brothers, to blow off some steam, he was just sitting in his room playing a song known as Reuben, which he would later make absolutely famous using both his three finger picking style and down tuning up at the head of the banjo. So as he would play, he finally figured it out, and he was able to play with three fingers. And he was then later told to have run through the house shouting, "I've got it! I've got it! I've finally got it!" Little did we know how much of an effect that would have. Around roughly the same time, another man by the name of Don Reno actually began to get very good at the style, and he had some successful hits as well. Most of them were more gospel oriented um, in his groups. But as time went on, World War II unfortunately rolled around about the time that these gentlemen's careers would start. So Don Reno joined the army, and um, Earl Scruggs went off to a textile mill. After the wartime restrictions were lifted, he then decided to audition for a spot in Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys, which oddly enough, Don Reno had just passed up on. I don't believe we would recognize the face of bluegrass today if Don Reno had gotten that slot instead of Earl Scruggs. And honestly, we can thank both men for making the decisions that they did for the music that we have today. Earl Scruggs later got into the Bluegrass Boys and went on tour with them for some of their most successful years, from 47 to 49, I believe. Um, During that time, they made some of the standard bearers of bluegrass. Obviously, with Bill Monroe at the helm, the group was destined for success. Songs such as Blue Moon of Kentucky, The Bluegrass Breakdown, Blue Yodel #4, Mule Skinner Blues, and the Orange Blossom Special, I believe is the tone here. Yes, the Orange Blossom Special. Um, all of these songs were written with Earl Scruggs playing the banjo and Lester Flatt also helping contribute to the vocals. Later on, they decided to split off and create their own group called Flatt and Scruggs, a very unique name. And they found great success later on, both musically and affecting our culture as a whole today, creating the theme song and closing tune for the show The Beverly Hillbillies, which was a pretty massive commercial success, and even today still has reruns playing on TV Land and some of the other channels that give current airplay to the older TV shows. Um, Even today, you can still hear them, and their influence really cannot be understated. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2012, um, but his influence has expanded far beyond the reaches of even his possible imagination. Whether that's across the globe in bluegrass groups that are popping up in the far eastern portions of Asia, um, all over Europe, even places in Africa have adapted the traditional three finger style that we now know today as traditional, which was very revolutionary at the time, has finally gained the success that I believe it deserves. And we can honestly thank that for so much of our music that we have today. There have been classical style pieces that have been written with it over the past 60, 70 years, was the last one that I saw. Um, we can thank it for a sound in some rock bands back in the 60s and 70s. And its influence on country music that we have today is still able to be heard over the radio every time you turn it on to the local Bristol hometown favorite of WXBQ. Um, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching.